dear children of class 9. Today the chapter we are going to start is hydrogen. If you have noticed periodic table and the position of hydrogen in periodic table, you will be finding that hydrogen is located in two groups, right? In the first group and as well as in the 17th group. The first group we call alkali group, okay, because the first group contains alkali metals like lithium, sodium, potassium, and hydrogen is placed in the group number 17 also with fluorine, chlorine, bromine. Those are known as halogens. So now we have to understand first why hydrogen's position is so unique in periodic table. Because hydrogen has few properties which are similar to the other alkali metals of group 1, and hydrogen has few properties which are similar as halogen also. Okay, so let's start with the similar properties what hydrogen has with the other alkali metals. As you know, these alkali metals, lithium, sodium or potassium, their electronic configuration is this way. 2,1 is for lithium, for sodium 2,8,1 and for potassium 2,8,8,1. If you look at the electronic configuration of hydrogen, hydrogen has only one electron in its first and foremost shell, that is the K shell. So hydrogen's electronic configuration we can write 1. So if you look at the valence electrons of all these elements, you will be seeing there is only one electron in their valence shell. That is why, so this is the first similarity we can say, one valence electron. Alright. So if there is one valence electron, they can donate that valence electron and can become chemically stable by completing their octet. Like you all have learned how these elements like sodium, lithium, potassium, they form ions. Sodium loses one electron to become sodium plus cation. Similarly, potassium also, lithium also, and hydrogen also does the very same thing. By losing one electron, it becomes hydrogen plus. So this is the second similarity. One valence electron loses one electron to become the cation with unit positive charge. So from these 2 points, you can comment on the valency of all these metals. All the alkali metals, as they lose one electron to become chemically stable, they have only one valency. Similarly, hydrogen also have valency 1. So this is also another similarity. Now, in the fourth point of similarity, what we can say is, like you have studied in the chapter air and oxygen in your middle school, these metals, these alkali metals like lithium, sodium or potassium, they get burnt in air to produce the metallic oxide. Like you all have learned this equation, 4Na plus O2 gives 2Na2O, right? Sodium oxide, potassium oxide, lithium oxide is formed. Similarly, if you burn hydrogen gas in air, you get oxide of hydrogen. We call it water. So these are the 4 points of similarities what hydrogen has with the alkali metals. Now let's go to group number 17, the group of halogens, where we have halogens like fluorine, chlorine and bromine. If you observe the electronic configuration of halogens, you will find that there is only one deficit of electron to make their complete octet. Like the electronic configuration of fluorine is 2,7, the electronic configuration of chlorine is 2,8,7. So what we can understand is, if these non-metals, they get one electron, then their octet will be completed. Similarly, like hydrogen. So the first point I am writing is like how they form ions. You know, fluorine or chlorine, they accept electron. Here I have written minus electron, here I am writing plus electron to become fluorine minus, and you see the octet will be also completed. Now if hydrogen gains one electron, H minus will be formed, and this H minus will contain 2 electrons because originally hydrogen had 1. After gaining 1 more, there will be 2 electrons altogether, and as you know, by 2n square rule, the maximum number of electrons that can be accommodated in the first cell is 2. That is why if hydrogen atom gets 2 electrons in its first cell, it is stable because its duplet or luplet is completed. Then let's come to number 2. Number 2, these halogens, they are gaining 1 electron to form the anion with unit positive charge. That means they have a valency of 1, so they also have a valency of 1. Now number 3, similarity with the group 17 halogens. All of them are non-metals. Hydrogen is also a non-metal. Okay, so because all of them are non-metal, hydrogen is also a non-metal. Then the number 4 similarity is none of them are solid because they are non-metals. Fluorine is gas, chlorine is gas, whether bromine is a liquid. Hydrogen is also gas. So see, either they are gaseous state or they are in liquid state. So they have similarity in their physical state as well. Understood? Okay, now here you may include one more point of similarity with the alkali metals, that is like lithium, sodium, potassium, they all are electropositive. Okay, hydrogen also exhibit electropositive. Similarly, like fluorine, chlorine, bromine, they are electronegative at times. Hydrogen also exhibit electronegative property. That is why like hydrogen can be placed in group 1 also and group 17 also. I hope you understood till here. Now we have to learn about some general procedures for preparation of hydrogen. That means what are the substances react to give out hydrogen gas. I have written a long series. Okay, have you seen this series somewhere? Yes, you have seen this series in the 2nd chapter where you have learnt about chemical reactions. To understand the displacement reaction, you learnt about the activity series of metals. Okay, in class 10 also you have to remember this activity series, so you must learn this properly. What we have understood is the metals like sodium, potassium, if they are at the top of that series, they are more active, and the more we go down in the series, the activity decreases. Correct? So we have to learn that what are the metals, they liberate hydrogen gas if they react with water. Please understand one thing. The metals which are more reactive, which are more active, they will react with cold water. So you can see like elements like potassium, sodium and calcium, they react with cold water, and they not only react, they react vigorously. They react almost with an explosion in the cold water, okay, to produce the hydroxide and the hydrogen. Alright, so tell me, if potassium reacts with cold water, then potassium hydroxide will be formed. You all know the formula of potassium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Similarly for sodium also, sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Similarly with calcium, calcium hydroxide and hydrogen gas will be produced. You have to balance these equations, okay. So I am writing here 2 KOH plus 2 H2O gives 2 KOH plus H2. Similarly here also 2, 2 and 2, okay. But if you look at this equation, with calcium you need not to write a 2, okay. It will be done in this way. Now magnesium, as you can see, as we are going down, the reactivity is getting decreased. So magnesium does not react with cold water, but it reacts with what? Hot water. And like it reacts with hot water to give out magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Similarly like this, okay. But let me give you one more information. With steam, magnesium react very slowly. See, this is just hot water, this is not the steam. But with steam or boiling water, magnesium reacts to give out magnesium oxide and water. Understood? This is with hot water and this is with steam. With steam, magnesium react to give out magnesium oxide and hydrogen. And whoever has done the experiment of burning magnesium ribbon, you know that when magnesium gets burned and magnesium oxide is formed, it produces a bright white light. So that bright white light, like Diwali's cracker, you will be able to see while this reaction happens. Alright, because of the production of magnesium oxide. Now we have learned the reaction of potassium, sodium, calcium and magnesium. See, these all we have done, right, with water. Now we have aluminium, zinc and iron. Aluminium, zinc and iron, they react with steam only. They neither react with cold water nor react with hot water. They react with the steam when water is in the gaseous state, because they are not so active like the metals which are situated at the top of that series. Okay, so they react. You must be like very careful about writing the products. Till here we have written the metallic hydroxides like potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, calcium hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide. But when aluminium, zinc and iron, they react with steam, they do not produce hydroxide, they produce oxide, metallic oxide. Understood? So the oxide of aluminium, you all know, Al2O3 aluminium oxide plus water. The oxide of zinc also you know, ZnO plus hydrogen gas. The oxide of iron also you know, Fe2O3 plus hydrogen. Now you have to balance these equations. How to balance it? Like 3H2O, here also it will be 3 and 2. Okay. Similarly for iron, 2Fe plus 3H2O give Fe2O3 plus 3H2, and for zinc it is already balanced. So you understood when like aluminium, zinc and iron is reacting with steam, their oxide is being formed, but till magnesium the hydroxide was formed. Students often do mistake here, they often get confused whether oxide will be formed or hydroxide will be formed. But being my children, you have to be very careful and write correctly whether it is the oxide or hydroxide. To understand, you must remember the clue. Active metals, they produce hydroxide. Metals which are not so active, they produce oxide. Okay. Then with steam, we have to learn one reaction with a non-metal, and this non-metal is coke. Okay. Coke means not the Coca-Cola you drink. Okay. Coke means the carbon. Okay. So if carbon reacts with steam, we get water gas. Water gas is the mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. So if coke reacts with steam, one non-metal, coke reacts with steam, carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas is formed. Together we call it water gas. So these are the reactions that will give you hydrogen from water. So I hope you understood how you get hydrogen from water. It can be cold also, it can be hot also, it can be steam also. We have learned that how hydrogen gas can be like given out by using water, right, with metals. Now we have to learn how we can obtain hydrogen gas from dilute acids. You have learned this equation. Metals which are below hydrogen in the activity series, they displaces the hydrogen from the acid to give out hydrogen gas, right? So let's see, like if these metals react with dilute acids, what are the like products being formed and how the hydrogen gas is given out. Okay, but before I show you the reactions of these metals, let me clarify with the choice of acid. You can see I have written only two acids, HCl and H2SO4. Please remember, we do not use dilute nitric acid because dilute nitric acid is a strong oxidizing agent. So if hydrogen is produced, nitric acid, dilute nitric acid, dilute nitric acid oxidizes that hydrogen into water and we do not get hydrogen gas. That is why dilute nitric acid is not used, but we use dilute hydrochloric acid or dilute sulfuric acid. Okay. Now let's see how these metals they react with dilute hydrochloric acid or dilute sulfuric acid. See, potassium, sodium and calcium, they are very active metal because they are at the top of the activity series, right? So if these metals they react with acids, you can understand the reaction is not be very normal one. You have seen that when these all metals are thrown into cold water, some explosion takes place because these reactions are highly exothermic. So if explosion takes place with cold water only, so if these metals react with dilute acid, the reaction will be more vigorous and technically, theoretically, the reaction will take place. Suppose if I write potassium plus HCl dilute potassium chloride and hydrogen gas will be produced. It is not like that hydrogen gas won't be produced. With potassium, sodium and calcium, hydrogen gas will be produced. But the reaction is so exothermic, it will be a very explosion kind of reaction and like you won't be able to collect hydrogen gas. That is why we cannot use potassium, sodium or calcium. Now magnesium and aluminium, these two metals are relatively less active. So technically again you can use these reactions, okay, but here the problem is like magnesium and aluminium, they are little costly. Those metals are costly, so you don't want to invest more where you can like have your work done with less amount of cost. So what I said, magnesium and aluminium, as they are costly, so they are also not used in the preparation of hydrogen. Okay, now let's come to zinc. Alright, zinc is the ideal one because zinc is above hydrogen also, so it is active, and zinc is not that costly like aluminium and magnesium, and zinc is not so active also, not so reactive like these potassium, sodium and calcium. So if zinc reacts with dilute acid, zinc plus 2HCl dilute, you will be getting hydrogen gas not only theoretically, but this reaction is of the moderate rate. So you can easily collect the hydrogen gas and all. When we will be learning about the lab preparation of hydrogen gas, I will be discussing this part in details. Now let's come to like iron. Okay, iron also will react technically. It is not that iron won't react, but the iron used has to be heated because you have seen iron is less reactive than zinc. So if iron is used to react with these dilute acids, these iron it has to be little heated, okay, and that is why with the hydrogen gas you will be getting the impurities of sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, etc. And moreover, I forgot to tell you one thing, while reacting with aluminium, okay, if aluminium reacts, then aluminium say plus H2SO4, okay, aluminium sulfate will be formed plus hydrogen gas, 3 will be here. Alright, so here also Al2O3 and other oxides of aluminium are formed because of aluminium's strong affinity towards oxygen, and they form a protective layer around the metal. So that is why the reaction gets stopped. So that is why our ideal metal is zinc, and the acid you can use any of these HCl and H2SO4, but not nitric acid, because dilute nitric acid is also a strong oxidizing agent. So I believe you understood how from dilute acid we can prepare hydrogen gas. So we have already learned how hydrogen can be obtained from water and from dilute acid. Now we have to learn how hydrogen can be obtained from alkali, okay, from alkalis. I believe you remember what are alkalis, like water soluble bases like sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide. Please understand three metals, aluminium, zinc and lead. What are the metals I have said? Aluminium, zinc and lead. Okay. They have amphoteric. Okay. They are amphoteric in nature. What I am saying? Amphoteric. Please learn the spelling also very nicely, because you have a little more discussion in class 10 also based on this property. So aluminium, zinc and lead, they are amphoteric in nature. What does that mean? They react with acids also, they react with alkalis also to give out hydrogen gas. Okay. So you understood what is the meaning of amphoteric nature. So what do? These aluminium, zinc and lead, they react with alkalis. Okay. Say I am writing for zinc Zn plus NaOH, okay, or Zn plus KOH, similar equations. They will be giving zincate salt, sodium zincate or potassium zincate, Na2ZnO2 plus hydrogen, and here it will be potassium zincate plus hydrogen. You have to balance it nicely. Okay, I hope it is balanced. Alright. Similarly, if like lead react with sodium hydroxide or lead react with potassium hydroxide, plumbite salt is being formed. Okay, sodium plumbite or potassium plumbite. The formula you must have learned in the first chapter, Na2PbO2 or K2PbO2 plus hydrogen. Here also 2 and 2 and the balance is done. Now let's learn the equations of aluminium, and please remember the equations of aluminium is a little different from them, because the aluminate salt, like that is of one valency. Okay, like zincate and plumbite, they are of two valency, -2, but aluminate AlO2 is of one valency. Okay, so let me show you the reaction and why it is a little different. You will understand then. Aluminium plus NaOH or aluminium plus KOH. Alright, what will be formed? As I said, aluminate salt, sodium aluminate or potassium aluminate. NaAlO2 is sodium aluminate and KaAlO2 is potassium aluminate, and as like hydrogen gas will be there. Please understand, see, when you have written the formula of zincate or plumbite, you have written Na2, K2, Na2, K2, because zincate and plumbite, they have valency of -2, but aluminate, it has a valency of -1. That is why NaAlO2, not Na2AlO2. Students often do mistake, okay? But again I am telling you, being my student, you should not be doing mistake on these, okay? Now let's try to balance it. And if you try to balance it, it will seem very difficult until and unless you will add water in the reactant side. And if you add water in the reactant side, you will be seeing your balance will become a little easy. Let me show you how, okay? Let's give 2 everywhere, and you see your balance is done. 2 NaOH, okay, 2 NaAlO2, so 2 2s are 4 oxygen. Here also 4 oxygen is done. Okay, so I am writing here 2 hydrogen, because hydrogen has 3 hydrogen will be there, and see your balance is done, because see here 2 2s are 4 hydrogen and plus 2 6 hydrogen. So to balance you need to bring 3 hydrogen. So here the children forget in 2 things. They do the mistake of writing Na2AlO2 or K2AlO2, and they forget this water in the reactant side. But you should not forget, okay? The formula of aluminate is NaAlO2, not Na2. Similarly, KAlO2, not K2AlO2. And the water has to be there in the reactant side when you are doing it for aluminium. So these are the ways to get hydrogen from water, from dilute acid and from alkali. I hope you understood till here. Well, after learning the general preparation of hydrogen from water, acids and alkalis, we have to learn the lab preparation. Okay, we have to learn what? The laboratory preparation. In short, we can call lab preparation of hydrogen gas. Alright, so let's start with the apparatus setup, and slowly we will get to know the entire story of lab preparation. See, I hope you can understand. We have taken a flask, okay, and that is a closed flask because you are preparing a gas, okay, and here from the mouth of the flask, two things have been coming out. One is the Thistle funnel, another one is the delivery tube. This is the delivery tube, okay, and this is the what we call Thistle funnel. The spelling T-H-I-S-T-L-E, Thistle funnel. Now let's see the reagents. I believe it's clear by the drawing only that one reagent is liquid and another reagent is solid. Okay, so the solid reagent is nothing but zinc. Okay, zinc metal. But we take is what? Granular zinc or commercial zinc. We do not take pure zinc, but we take granular zinc or commercial zinc. And the liquid reagent is nothing but dilute hydrochloric acid. So now let's see when they react what happens. Zn plus 2HCl dilute gives ZnCl2 plus H2, right? You have already learned this equation. See, we cannot use potassium, sodium, these metals because they are very active. You won't be able to control the reaction in the lab. So compared to that, if you see the electrochemical series of metals, you see the position of zinc is moderate. So zinc is not so active like sodium, potassium, calcium, okay, and zinc is not very unreactive or very less reactive. That is why we take zinc. Now the question comes, why don't we take pure zinc? Like I have said that granular zinc or commercial zinc we use. So the question is, why pure zinc is not used? Because in the granular zinc, impurities are present, impurities like copper, and they have slight catalyzing effect. They have slight catalyzing effect. Now, I believe you know about catalyst or what is catalyzing effect. Catalysts are those chemicals which alters, either speeds up or slows down the rate of the reaction, but they themselves do not take part in the reaction. So here, as copper is being present, the rate of the reaction is optimum and we can expect a good production of hydrogen gas. Now, one important question comes. This is the Thistle funnel. Through the Thistle funnel, we pour dilute HCl. So what we do is, first we take the zinc, then we close the container setting up this apparatus. Then afterwards, we pour dilute hydrochloric acid through the funnel. And if you can observe, you may be wondering why sir has put the end part of Thistle funnel to the extreme end of the flask. Because when you will pour the dilute hydrochloric acid, it will come down. Alright, it will come down. So if the dilute, suppose it is still here, okay, the Thistle funnel is still here, I finish it here, then what will happen? Hydrogen gas will be evolving. Hydrogen gas will be evolving by the reaction, and the hydrogen gas is expected to go by this delivery tube for collecting here, right? But if Thistle funnel gets finished above the level of acid, then hydrogen gas will escape out through the Thistle funnel. That is why it is very important to keep the Thistle funnel till down, so that the produced hydrogen gas comes through the delivery tube only. So hydrogen gas is coming through the delivery tube. Okay, and after coming to this portion, hydrogen we collect here. So now you can see an inverted gas jar is kept over some water. So hydrogen gas is collected by what? See, if hydrogen gas comes out in the form of these all bubbles, so hydrogen will be accumulated at the top part of the gas jar, and water is going down, the more hydrogen will be coming out. Because of the pressure, the water level will go down. So water is going where? Upward or downward? Water is going downward. So hydrogen gas is collected by downward displacement of water. So question may be asked, how hydrogen gas is collected? What your answer would be? Your answer would be hydrogen gas is collected by downward displacement of water. So I hope you understood how the hydrogen gas is collected. But here we have to be sure about a few precautions. Okay, the first precaution I have said, I am writing here precaution. The first precaution I have said, that is what? The end of the Thissell funnel should be below the level of the acid. End of the Thissell funnel is one precaution. And what are the other precautions? Okay, whole apparatus setup should be airtight. The entire apparatus setup has to be what? Airtight. Let me tell you why. I believe you know the components of air. Air means what? Oxygen is present, and you all know very well that oxygen supports combustion, whereas this hydrogen, that is itself combustible. So one, hydrogen is combustible and oxygen supports combustion. Okay, so this mixture is highly explosive. You are understanding, right? This hydrogen is always very eager to get burned. Okay, that is why it is combustible. And wherever it is burning, oxygen helps that combustion. So the mixture of hydrogen and oxygen is explosive mixture. So if all the apparatus setup is not airtight, so what? With the hydrogen, air will be mixed. That will form a very explosive mixture. That is why the entire apparatus setup has to be airtight. There should not be any leakage anywhere. Okay. Now let's come to the third precaution of lab preparation of hydrogen. In the third precaution, what we must ensure is you have kept one inverted gas jar here, okay, by downward displacement of water, and here you have put granular zinc and dilute hydrochloric acid for the reaction to happen. Now please let's understand, when you close the flask, there was already some air that was here, okay, because you did not make it vacuum, right? You took a flask and you made this apparatus setup and you closed the flask, right? So some amount of air was already there. So when the reaction will start, hydrogen will come out here, the pressure of the gas will increase, and together hydrogen and air will come out here. So initially you have to wait till all air of the flask escapes out. Then you have to collect hydrogen, because if you collect from the initial stage of preparing hydrogen in the gas jar, you will be getting this mixture, air and hydrogen, and I am telling again and again that the mixture of air and hydrogen is highly explosive. So we have to ensure all air escapes before collecting the hydrogen gas. Alright, so these are the precautions you must take in the lab preparation of hydrogen gas. So from here many reason question also can come, that why you should wait till all air escapes out. Okay, why should the apparatus setup be why should the apparatus setup is should be totally airtight? You have to answer that the mixture of air and hydrogen makes one explosive mixture. Okay. In the fourth point of precaution, what you can write is, no inflammable substance should be brought near. Please understand this part. You know hydrogen itself is combustible. So if anybody brings any inflammable substance, hydrogen itself will get burned and explosion may take place. That is why you have to be very sure that no inflammable substance like matchstick, okay, no fire element should be coming near to the this method of preparing hydrogen. So these are the precautions from here. Division question can come, as I am already saying. Okay. One more question come, like why we use hydrogen, like dilute hydrochloric acid. Why don't you use like H2SO4 or HNO3? See, like if you use H2SO4, there will be a coating on the like surface of the zinc, and the acid will be like stop coming in contact with H2SO4. So the production of hydrogen will not be very optimum. And why should not you use dilute nitric acid? Because dilute nitric acid is an oxidizing agent. It is an oxidizing agent that oxidizes the zinc to zinc nitrate, and the produced hydrogen gas will be oxidized to water. That is why the ideal acid to use is what? Dilute hydrochloric acid. So that's all from the lab preparation of hydrogen gas. I hope you understood this part. So after learning about the lab preparation of hydrogen, we have to know the industrial method to manufacture hydrogen. Okay. At the very beginning, you have to learn what is the name of the industrial process to manufacture hydrogen. The name of the process is Bosch process. B-O-S-C-H. Please be careful about the spelling. And whenever you write B, like Bosch, that B has to be in caps, capital letter. So the name of the method is Bosch process. Okay. Only two equations you have to learn with condition from this Bosch process. Okay. So please understand how how hydrogen can be manufactured in the Bosch process. I hope you remember I have already discussed the reaction with one non-metal with steam. Okay. Yes, I have discussed the reaction of coke, that is carbon. I have discussed already. If coke reacts with steam at a very high temperature, 1000 degrees Celsius, then a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas is formed. This reaction I have already discussed. Okay. So if coke is, this is coke. If coke reacts with steam at high temperature, then a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen is produced. We name it as water gas. Alright. And as we are supplying it, this is an endothermic reaction. So minus heat I have written. So this is the first step or first reaction you have to understand from Bosch process. Now what will happen is, if water gas again passed with more of steam, okay, in the presence of catalyst iron 3 oxide and almost 450 degrees Celsius to 500 degrees Celsius, then you will be getting CO2 plus 2 hydrogen. Alright, so this was water gas. What was produced in the first step, you are taking the same product for the next reaction. And if this water gas reacts with more of steam in presence of iron 3 oxide catalyst, then carbon dioxide and hydrogen is formed. So now you tell me, you are preparing hydrogen gas, you have got hydrogen gas, but what are the impurities that can be present with this hydrogen gas? See, both the products are gaseous. So when you are getting hydrogen gas, carbon dioxide is already mixed with that. So you have to remove CO2 to get the pure hydrogen. So how to remove CO2? In the lab preparation only I have said, to remove CO2, you have to pass the gas through caustic potash solution. Then what will happen? Carbon dioxide will react with caustic potash to give potassium carbonate and water. Okay, so your CO2 is removed. Then again you see, from the very first step, you have taken the water gas, and in the water gas you have carbon monoxide also. So there are possibilities of few carbon monoxide, unreacted carbon monoxide, to be mixed with the hydrogen gas. So you have to remove carbon monoxide also. So to remove carbon monoxide, you need to pass the gas through the solution of ammoniacal cuprous chloride. Okay. At first you have passed through caustic potash solution, I have said, and now you are passing it through ammoniacal, that means ammonia mixed ammoniacal cuprous chloride solution. Then this solution will react with CO and CO will be removed. Let me show you how this reaction happens. Okay. So CO you have to remove, so CO will be there. Cuprous chloride is CuCl, because cupric chloride is CuCl2. Valency of copper is 2 in cupric, but in cuprous chloride copper has only one valency, so CuCl plus H2O. So the reaction is very easy. You need to just write everything together. CuCl.CO.H2O. Though you need not to learn this reaction, you have to learn like how to purify, okay, or remove the impurities. To purify first KOH solution, to remove CO2, okay, and in the next step to pass through ammoniacal cuprous chloride solution to remove CO. These are the things you have to remember from the like industrial method to manufacture hydrogen. Okay, please remember the name, Bosch process. That's it from the chapter hydrogen. We have only one more topic left, that is the oxidation and reduction, which is part of this chapter, that I will discuss later. So I hope you understood the chapter hydrogen till here and enjoyed also. Thank you.